Hello, listeners. Welcome back to this week's episode of Rekindled Faith. My name is Melanie Beerda, and today I have with us someone extra special.
Hi, I'm Andi.
This is Andi Wallins. Andi is going to be our new co-host for Rekindled Faith. So, yeah. For this episode, we're actually going to dive into my testimony, which Andi is going to be my interviewer. And then stay tuned for next week because then we're going to launch Andi's interview about her testimony.
Hey, Melanie. A long time no see.
Hi, Andi.
How's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Good. Really excited to be here and to interview you for your testimony.
Yeah.
I was thinking in the car on the way over, I'm like, every time you start talking or we're doing a podcast, I hear more of your story and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's like coming out in little pieces and I'm like, you went through what? This happened?
Yeah.
I think you have such a amazing story, how you came back to Jesus and how you found your way back home. So I'm excited to ask you some questions about that.
Cool.
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about, we'll get to why you created the podcast later. I want to hear more about your life story because I think it weaves into how the podcast was created.
Yeah. So my name is Melanie, obviously. Welcome to Rekindled Faith. And I basically, I was adopted at 10 days old. My biological mom recognized that she was not in a position where she could raise me as her own child, and she wanted to give me life. She had men in her life that were asking her to get an abortion, but she chose to proceed with the pregnancy and gave me up for adoption. So she hand selected my parents' file from a giant stack of potential parents for myself, and I think she made a good choice. So good job, Mama. Yeah, at 10 days old, I was adopted into my family. I have an older sister about 5 years older than myself. She was also adopted. Growing up with understanding that, I found out at a very young age. And for myself, I didn't fully understand what that meant. I just felt scared because I didn't understand why I wasn't with my real family. And I struggled with that identity piece for a lot of years because, where do I belong? And do I look like my family? Do I have the same mannerisms? Do I have the same interests and all those things? And so there was a lot of questions that I had in regards to where I came from. And I think we all do in some sense, right?
Yeah.
But for myself growing up, I struggled a lot with that identity piece. And so I felt very insecure about who I was. Yeah. And I felt just kind of scared because I didn't understand the circumstances leading up to. It's not until I met my biological mother and my half brother and my half sister at 18 did I start to get some pieces to the puzzle and have a better understanding of the life that they had and, the reason why my mom chose to give me up for adoption. And, God bless her soul. She's a very brave woman. Yeah. I have 2 kids now and I just can't even fathom handing them over in the hospital and those cute little squiggly squirmers. I can't imagine. So the amount of love and trust that she had in God, because she is a Christian, to hand me over to people that she barely even knew and just trusting God in that process. And so, my biggest heart is to honor her and both of my parents, my adoptive parents as well, because, as much as I complained about them growing up because I was stuck in a victim mindset, I look back over my life today and they did give me a safe place to grow up and wrestle through the questions. And, especially my mom, she was my prayer warrior. She was my safe person, my safe place. So I'm very thankful for them and just the effort and the time and the love that they put into me. I actually found, I had a random conversation with some other mom at Play Abbey in Abbotsford one day, and she was going on about how she wanted to have more kids, but she didn't want to be pregnant. And so they were talking about adoption, but she said, I don't know how I could ever love somebody that wasn't my own blood. And she didn't know that I was adopted. Right. Wow. So, it didn't hurt me. It didn't hurt my feelings. I understand that other people have different perspectives and don't, know what it's like to go through those things. But I also just have come to know that my parents, I never doubted their love for me. I never doubted that I was a part of that family and that they cared for me. And it wasn't a blood thing. And even my mom and my dad let friends of mine and my sisters live with us in our house for on and off different seasons. Just if they had some home situation that wasn't working well or whatever, like they were welcome to come and live with us for a time. And the love and compassion that they had for those people of just coming into our house, like blood doesn't mean that you're family, right? Like we can love people that don't share our DNA just as much. So that's just like part of the adoption story. So if you have any follow-up questions, I'll let you.
I have so many. I'm like, where do I want to take this? Because how do you think being adopted or being in an adoptive family, how did that shape your path to Jesus? Or were you raised Christian from your adoptive parents?
Yeah. So I grew up in a Christian home. So we went to church, did the like Sunday school, girls club, youth group, all that stuff. And, you know, I have to say, like, as far as my faith as a young person, I believed in Jesus. I believed in God. I enjoyed the stories that I learned at church and at Sunday school, but it didn't really make sense to me. You know, I used to play a game with my friend where we would like jump around and try to catch our guardian angel. And it was like, it was fun. But I never like, and that's just like as a grown up looking back and seeing, I didn't really understand the true depth of what it meant to be a Christian or what it meant that Jesus died to save me from my sin. So I didn't really comprehend that, but I grew up in a Christian home. And so there were obviously like the typical Christian jargon, forgive and forget, love your neighbor, do good to those that persecute you, all that stuff. But I never really had a heart connection to understanding how that really affected my life or my living, or how to forgive and how to forget and how to process through when I was feeling insecure about my own identity, or how I could even identify with Christ because he was some character in a story that I had heard about, but I had not fully experienced, I don't believe. And so growing up with the adopted mindset of just knowing that I wasn't from this place, and then also growing up as a Christian, I think like just in general, I always felt like an outcast. I'd never felt like I really blended in or fit in with kids at school, kids at church. Like I always felt like set apart, not in like the cool Bible sense way, like, oh, you're special, you're set apart for good work. It was set apart like you're different, you don't fit, so you just live over here in this valley. And so I think what I did in a survival instinct was just build up this idea that I was worthless and that I wasn't worthy of love or being known. And when I really look back at it though, my perception back then was that, you know, the mirage of if I only had those friends, then I would be loved.
Yeah.
If I only had this in life, then I'd be loved. If my parents only bought me more stuff, then I'd be loved.
Yeah.
I always had this pursuit of that mirage in the desert of like, I just got to get that and then I'll be loved. And so, I mean, Jesus loves us where we are and calls us out of that to new life in him. But that's not what I understood of it back then. So again, when I look back, I can see where I had really good people in my life that I definitely took for granted and that I didn't recognize when I was walking through hard times, how impactful they were in my story. So it's just been like a process. And like, of course, now as a 36-year-old woman, you know, I am adopted into the family of God. And, you know, I am set apart, but that doesn't mean because I'm less than or because I'm more than, but it's just, I'm created for another world in a sense, right? Like this isn't my permanent home. This is just a temporary place that God has called me to be of service to people and to glorify him and to care for his creation.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. Do you think that feeling of not feeling like you belonged is what had you eventually get into drinking and drugs and go off the Jesus path? Or maybe share how you got.
Yeah, absolutely. So just like jumping back into childhood, I did experience childhood sexual abuse. So I was molested for a number of years by a boy that was older than me. So with the identity piece of the adoption, of feeling like I was rejected, and then all of a sudden my complete innocence is just demolished and ripped from me. And then starting to understand, okay, I'm an object. It doesn't matter. Like, it's like I had to give myself to people in order to be accepted or be loved. And so I ended up just not knowing how that really fit in with the church that I was in, the culture of the church. So I just kind of started really building up an external armor that I thought could protect me from the pain and suffering that I perceived that I would receive. Perceived that I would receive from the body of Christ, because I didn't feel like I was good enough for church, because my perception was that church was for good people,
good kids.
Good kids that had never experienced pain or suffering, that were not being abused behind closed doors. I had a lot of shame associated to what was happening to me, especially because I did grow up in that purity culture push of like, save yourself for marriage, do not have sex. Sex is bad, bad, bad. And then these things were happening to me. And so I just felt so much shame, like I was just damaged goods that could never truly find happiness and peace and all those things. Part of it was out of just spite towards my family, my upbringing, definitely towards God, of recognizing, you know what, I know exactly where I've been told my entire life not to go, and I'm going to go there. And it wasn't like in one night I was a crazy party girl. Like, it was a progressive pursuit, I guess, of just like trying alcohol one time and feeling that numbing over my spirit of all of that pain, all of that insecurity, anxiety, something I didn't know that I had, just kind of settled down, and there was a stillness because I was numb from the effects of the alcohol on my body. And I liked that. To me, that was giving me wings to fly away from all of the pain that I was experiencing on the inside. It was a progressive thing. You know, people say that weed is a gateway drug. Well, yeah, it is. I do believe it because I've walked it. And, you know, I started to find people that would like to party and like to drink and get exposed to like a whole array of new problems that I had to like eventually dig myself out of. And I was a chameleon. I would jump from place to place and just kind of try to blend in with whoever I was with in that time and space, and just trying to like fit in and blend in, because I didn't know who I was on the inside. I didn't know what the real Mel was, and I didn't know if anyone would even care to know. I didn't feel like there was any value within me. So yeah, like partying. I ended up drinking. I've done mushrooms, ecstasy, obviously pot. And then towards the end, I started getting into cocaine. And, you know, the first time I tried it was to like intentionally to make my boyfriend at the time really mad, because we were not in a healthy relationship. Let's tell you that. But it was like intentionally like, oh, I'm going to make him mad and do this cocaine that this person's offering me. And then so I did it, and it didn't have an effect on me. And so 6 months later, my friend was like, hey, I'm thinking about trying cocaine. And I'm like, cool.
You see, it didn't have an effect?
It did not have an effect.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if I was like just too drunk or what. Or my body just was like, what is this? I don't know. Or maybe it's supernatural. I have no idea. Melanie was protected that one time, but no. But yeah, my friend asked me 6 months later, like, hey, I want to try it. Like, do you want to try it with me? I'm like, yeah, totally. I've done it before, and like, whatever. It's no big deal. It was a big deal. And so, you know, and then I got scared to start drinking. Like, if I went out with friends, I'd be like, I'm only going to drink. Like, I'm not going to drink tonight, or I'm only going to have one, because I knew that as soon as I start drinking, that whole, like the guard that I would have set up to not do drugs would come down, and it'd be like, wow, whatever, let's just do it anyway. So it wasn't like an everyday thing, but I would go through different binging sessions of doing it. And so even in sharing all of this, like, again, my parents were two incredible people, and I put them through complete hell. Like, horrible experiences that they had to go through watching their child suffer. And so for the listeners, if there's somebody out there that is like struggling with addiction, or has somebody in their life that is struggling with addiction, I get it. And you know what? It is a painful thing. And I also want to encourage you that there are different resources and help available if you're going through that season.
Yeah, I just want to rewind just back to the sexual assault that you're experiencing. Did you go to a pastor? Did you go to the church? Did you go to your parents? Did you share with anyone what was going on?
Yeah, I tried to bring it up when it first started happening. And I brought it up with my parents, but I was like super scared too, because I knew that, things like that was bad. Like in my spirit, I knew that this was bad. And at this point, it was just that the boy had exposed himself to me and in a sexual way, and that made me feel very unsafe. We should definitely put a trigger warning on this episode. But yeah, so I went to my parents, and I don't think my parents remembered this. And I think that they just thought it was, just like, it wasn't anything too serious. So they sat both of us down and said like, hey, this is not happening. This is not allowed. And like tried to put that protection in place to like call it out and say no. For myself, that was just, I felt so much shame. Because I was the one that brought it out, and now this person was getting into trouble. I felt like it was my fault, which is stupid how abuse does that to a victim. So I thought it was my fault. And I just, after that, when it continued to happen, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to rock the boat again. And I didn't want to get in trouble or feel any more shame. So I just bottled it up, and I didn't talk about it. But honestly, I didn't have grown-ups in my life that I felt I could go to. And I don't know about you or anyone else, but for me, when I was growing up, it was like my mom had friends, and she would go over for Bible study to friends' houses, and the kids would all come, and then we'd be shooed downstairs into the basement to play amongst ourselves while Bible study was happening, and like other things too, with like extended family members and stuff like that. No one ever just sat down with me and said, hey, how are you today?
How's it going?
Like it was all very quick in passing conversation. So I didn't have any healthy, grounded grown-ups that I felt like I could sit with and just be like, hey, this just happened and I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Do you think that had you kind of turn away from the church in a way that you didn't feel like you could bring that pain and like bring that to the people, the adults that were around you?
I don't think that ever came across my mind. I think that I just associated church with perfect people that didn't.
Oh, you were bad and they were perfect.
I was bad and I wasn't really, I wasn't meant for church, I guess. Like it was a nice place to go to. But even during youth group, like teenagers are just like mean.
Yeah.
Like, right. And when you see a child that is insecure or like changes their favorite color based on what other people have said, like kids just jump on that. So, I mean, I was insecure and they could see that.
It's almost like kids poke on the more insecure you are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They poke on. So, okay. So then you start partying, you start doing cocaine, heavy drugs. I know you eventually end up in treatment, but how do you get there?
Yeah. So,
and how long of a time frame is that? From when you start drinking? How old were you too?
I was around 14 when I had my first drink.
So that's really young.
That was quite young, yeah.
Okay, 14.
But it wasn't like I just started drinking every day. It was, like I said, a progressive thing. So I think I like started really getting into drinking around 16. I had some older kids that I could like go with to parties and stuff. I never really got along with people my own age. Yeah. I think in a way, like again, looking back, I was forced into maturity at a young age. So I never felt like I could relate to kids that were like, oh, I got my first kiss. I'm like, oh gosh, let's just stop talking about this.
Yeah.
So I just hung out with older kids and I went to house parties and stuff like that around 16 and started smoking cigarettes. It all really started to progress quite fast when I was 18 after I met my biological family. Between that and at 18, I told my mom about the abuse that I had gone through. So it was just like a bucket of can of worms was opened up and all of these emotions that I've been holding on to for so many years, just like deep and dark festering pit within myself was like suddenly very exposed. People knew all about what was happening, what had happened, and I didn't have the coping mechanism to be able to navigate through that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that my mom really did either. Like she, again, like honor to my parents, like she did the best that she could, but that also like traumatizes a mom.
Yeah.
That makes me emotional, right?
Yeah.
So she didn't know like what to do. So she started getting me like help with like counseling and stuff like that. So like things were happening, but it was just too much for me. So at 18 is when I really started to get heavy into drinking. By 19, that's when I started experimenting with like cocaine. And then by 20, it was quite often, and like calling in sick to work, drunk on the phone, and just like not at all like a functioning human being. Of like, I was just like going to parties and stuff, and I think I blended in kind of, I don't know, because I was just a teenager being stupid, right? Like, just exploring the world. I mean, apart from in the church context, like surely I would have stuck out, but if anybody else in a crowd, it's just like, this is what teenagers do. They go to parties, they experiment, and then they get over it, move on. Yeah. And so by 21, my friends, because they were older, they were starting to grow up and like make better choices with their life. And I just didn't see another option of a group of friends that I could really hang out with. And so I was mad at first that they started to like grow up and get mature. And then eventually I think that God just kind of used that to strip away all of my options. So gradually, like me with the drug use got worse, but my friends started to move on. And so I stopped having the ability to continue. And I just hit rock bottom at 21. Thanksgiving weekend, I told my parents I couldn't go to the island to see my grandma because I had to go to work. And I told work, of course, that I had to go to the island to see my grandma, and like sob story, like she's going to die. Like, oh, wow. My poor grandma, I must have killed her off a few times. I'm sorry, grandma. Yeah. So I ended up being home alone because at that time I was living with my parents, home alone for the weekend. And so I had some friends over, we partied, and then I went to my other friend's house and partied there and basically stayed up the whole weekend and just felt like trash. And so it was like, my parents had come home, and so I got out of my house, went to another friend's house, and was doing cocaine and just like sufferfest. Like, it's horrible. Like, don't do drugs. Like, don't. Like, it's not good. Not good. And so like that night though, that night really sucked because, you know, I had one friend there with me, and he was like concerned. He's like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" And my mom called me and she's like, "Melanie, I'm so worried. I want to come and get you." And I'm like, "Mom, no, do not come and get me." Like, I was so paranoid that she would come and find me in that state and see how bad I really was, because I didn't want her to see it. And I had that poor woman, I trampled her so much, like just verbally abusive towards her just for reasons to get out of the house and get away and blame her. And she did not deserve that. So anyways, that night was horrible. The good Lord put her into a deep sleep because she was going to come and get me. But then she just like spent the night praying and ended up in a very deep sleep. And so the next morning, I hadn't slept at all. The next morning, when I knew that my parents had both gone to work, I went home and I was looking for something to take the edge off, a drink, a drug, something. And I couldn't find anything in my room. And so I just broke down. I started weeping in my room and I fell to my knees and I cried out to God for help, because at this point I had completely walked away from him and I hated him, and I still believed. But I just had so much hate towards him, because how could you, some perfect God, love me if my life has felt like complete garbage for so long? But I fell to my knees in my room that morning and I just wept and melted into the floorboards and cried out to God for help. And it was like this peace washed over me. For the first time in my entire life, I felt this sense of peace. I cried. Like, I cried hard. And then I decided, okay, I need to call my mom. My safe place. Look at it, I get emotional. Okay. Yeah. Go with me. But I called her a few times. She didn't answer. And then eventually she did pick up. And all I said was, "Mom, I need help." Yeah. She said, "I'm coming home." Yeah. So that started the process of looking for recovery houses and like trying to figure out what comes next, because we'd never been through it. Yeah. So, and like, it was God's wonderful humor. The non-Christian, like more hospital style recovery house that I wanted to go to for like dramatic effect and to just not be having like to talk about God, had a 3-month wait. And the Christian one that was in a house had like a 3-day wait. Like, I just had to get through the weekend and then I was good to go. And so I was like, okay. My mom's like, Melanie, we'll just start there. And if you don't like it, we'll put you on the list for the other one. And I'm like, okay, Mom. But as soon as I walked into that house, I just felt the love of God wash over me.
Wow.
And I was surrounded by so many incredible women that just loved me in the mess that I was and spoke life into my spirit. And it was a safe place for me to disentangle through all the things of my past and my expectations of God, and really come to understand the heart of the God of the Bible and how he desires to have a relationship with us, and how that's an invitation that, you know, my rebellion didn't take away. And I do believe that God was actively pursuing me through all those years of my rebellion. And I did even like go through like moments of recognizing his spirit with me in those moments. Not that he was saying, this is a good thing for you to do, Melanie, because it surely wasn't. But he never left me. He never forsook me. He continued to offer me a way through the wilderness.
Yeah. Yeah. And then eventually you got home. So you're in recovery, and was it styled like you were reading the word every day? You said there were women there. Were you reading the Bible? Like how I'm just curious how that recovery process was.
Yeah. So we went through like the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous within the house. And so you like got paperwork that you had to fill out and everything. And then we had like a schedule for the week. So I don't remember it all because it was 15 years ago, but we had different sessions that we would do. We would start every morning with prayer and devotions. So somebody would read scripture, read from some devotional book, and then just spend time in prayer and worship, listening to worship songs. And then, we had like counselors that worked there that would lead us through different types of sessions about overcoming abuse or overcoming like hardship and difficulty and navigating life. And really it was just about giving you the life skills to be able to process through all of these things that I don't know why we're not taught this as children, like to be able to regulate your emotions, like those types of things. Like, where is the training? I don't know. But there was just different types of sessions that they would do there. And then we would go to different types of meetings within the community. We would go to church on Sundays. And then there's a wonderful lady that would lead Bible study. She was a volunteer. She'd come in every Friday and lead us through Bible study. Pretty sure she's still doing it. So awesome. Props to volunteers, great humans. And and then we would have like schedules, like we would have to cook dinner, clean the dishes, like learn life skills and how to be a part of a community and stuff like that. So it was a good program. It was 3 months. Yeah. I chose to stay for 7 months because I didn't want to relapse. And
did you live there?
I lived there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. For 7 months. And then what happened when you were done?
I left the house. Like I was complete the program. So I left and I ended up getting a job at the Vancouver airport. And so I moved out to Richmond for a few years there and worked as a flight dispatcher for one of the airlines out there. And, learned how to live life on life's terms and, staying connected with people that knew what I had gone through and supported me and loved me in that. And like, even in that process, like I'm only 21, right? Like all of the people that I worked with were still going clubbing, going to parties, getting wasted and all that stuff. And it was like, in a sense, it was a very lonely time of feeling isolated from my peers, of feeling isolated from community, and like just having to find places where people understood what I was going through. And so I did have a couple different like opportunities to just stay connected and get connected in that community, specifically with people that got it. I think that in life, I've gone through a lot of different seasons of feeling isolated from people. And I again, like reflective, like I can look back and I can see how God was using those feelings of insecurity and isolation to invite me into something more substantial in his relationship, of knowing that even though people come and people go, that God remains the same forever and is always steadfast there with me. Yeah. So now it's like, if I have beautiful friendships today, but I know that if those people decided, Melanie, you suck and I don't want to be your friend, if they would like ditch me, I might be like, I would be sad about it for sure, but it's not going to be the end of my life. It's not going to wreck me because I have this solid foundation of Jesus Christ in my life. And so regardless of what comes, I know that I will be okay. And I've even seen that in losing my grandmother a few years ago, not the one that the other one died like a long time ago, but the other one, she was very instrumental in raising me up and like just being a part of my life. Like grandparents are the best. If you've got grandparents, if you don't, man, old people, go be a grandparent to other people. Please, we need you. But yeah, so she passed away, and that was the first time I experienced a deep loss where I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying out of gratitude and just like being held in the presence of the Holy Spirit in that season of grief and like weeping uncontrollably, like on the floor, fetal position, like crying out. But it wasn't a space of being sad or brokenhearted, but in like celebration that I got to have such a wonderful life knowing this woman and the impact that she's had on me. And like, that's not me. I did not figure this out. No, this is the Holy Spirit, like coming and flooding every aspect of my life and taking full ownership over his creation, me. And like, I don't have it all together. I don't have it all figured out. But again, like I know that come what may, God's got me. And so I don't know. It's just a beautiful thing to be able to recognize that. And honestly, that's my hope for doing this ministry. So helping others.
One more question before we get into ministry stuff. When you came out of recovery, did you get baptized, or how did that process go?
Yeah. So let me see here. I was in my early 20s, maybe 23 or 24 when I got baptized. So I got baptized at my church, and it happened right after I went on a missions trip, which was a super big healing point for me because the church that I was at during that time, we went on a missions trip with the young adults group from my church that I was going to at that time. And we went to Mexico and did a bunch of different ministry things in the community. And I was so nervous to go, for one, because I was still smoking cigarettes. And I'm going with all these little Christian people
who don't smoke cigarettes.
So I was like super nervous. So I quit smoking cigarettes. On that trip, I had my, like, we flew to somewhere in the States, and then we drove across the border into Mexico. And when we landed in the States, everyone went inside, and I had my last cigarette. And then that's it. I haven't had one since. I'm sorry.
Was it a Marlboro?
Oh, heck no. Those things are horrible. Canadian classics all the way. Anyways, don't smoke cigarettes.
No, cigarettes bad.
Yeah. So I had like my last cigarette, but I was super nervous and scared because I had this perception that church people were judgmental, hypocritical, condescending, that I would just never fit in, never be accepted, that my story would always hinder me from having relationships with people in the church and everything. So I just had already this preconceived idea that I'd never fit in and that no one would actually care about who I was underneath everything. So like that identity piece is still like being worked out. Anyways, I shared my testimony for the very first time with one of the girls that I had befriended on that trip. And my goodness, she accepted me. She thanked me for being vulnerable and for sharing that with her. She was just sitting with me in it. You know, there was no condemnation. There was no judgment. There was no rejection. Man, that woman, does she even know how much power she had over my story? And like, I'm sitting here today with you, sharing it publicly online. And, you know, I mean, God bless her soul. This is the Bible verse she gave to me after that. So it's Psalm 107, verse 2. Let the redeemed of the Lord proclaim that he has redeemed them from the power of the foe. So that's the Bible verse she gave me. So now I'm like, I mean, it's a Holy Spirit thing, really, that I was just able to recognize that, you know, the church isn't out to take, like, I don't know, hurt me necessarily. Some people in church are kind of sucky and like they will say things and you just got to roll your eyes and move along. We're all a work in progress. But yeah, like she just met me in a very vulnerable state. And after that, I had the confidence to share with the rest of the group about my experiences and my testimony. And after that, our young adults pastor asked me to share in front of the church. Wow. So it was just like a progressive thing of like gaining the confidence to know that like I had so much shame, even after like being baptized and walking with Christ and learning about the Bible. I still had shame for my story, But the more that I talk about it, the more that I offer it up as a living, breathing sacrifice to my God, and just allow other people to know that there is hope and there is restoration available for the things that the enemy tries to destroy, and that God can redeem the most broken. I don't share it because I think that I need to have a voice in the atmosphere. I don't share it because I think that I'm better than people or worse than people. I just honestly share it because it's not my story. It's our story. Yeah. It's God's story, and it brings glory to him for the work that he's done in my heart. Because if I wasn't actively pursuing my relationship with Christ, I would not be here today. Yeah. I would be dead. I truly believe that if I did not surrender to God in my bedroom that time, weeping, calling out to God for help, if I had not surrendered, I was on a path of destruction that would have taken me out.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so beautiful, getting down on your knees and just you're at the end of yourself. I need help.
100%, man. And it was a hard process. I think sometimes when we listen to people's testimonies, it can seem like, oh, well, then Jesus came in and washed her white as snow and everything's fine now. But it's like, I'm still working through some things that need to be worked through. And time does not, time is not the judge of when we get healing from certain things, right? And I can say that I'm healed from the effects of the abuse that I had gone through. And I can say that I'm healed from my perspective that I was rejected at birth. I don't think that anymore. God has redeemed that part of my story. And I recognize, like I said in the beginning, like the vulnerability of my mom choosing to carry her child for 9 whole months, feeling the body move within her body, knowing that this child is going to be outside of her reach, outside of her protection, and that she had to trust God with that. And I still got scathed. I still was burned by the sins of other people. But I truly believe that me being adopted into the family I was adopted into was God's grace upon my life, because even in conception, the enemy was after my life, and he's been after my life in a variety of ways ever since. Yeah. But I am a child of God, redeemed by his love and his care, and I will bring my testimony to any platform that I can bring glory to him.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. How did you end up in ministry? And tell us a bit about creating the Rekindled Faith podcast and how you've got this podcast going and all that.
Yeah. So this was not my plan. It was not going to be a podcast.
As the best things are, they're not the plans.
I was definitely looking forward to just like hiding in the crowd, sitting on the church pew and no one ever knowing anything. And then during COVID, I have a friend that I grew up with. She was my best friend growing up, and she's been burned by Christians. And so during the pandemic, I had this friend that was not a Christian, and she was posting anti-Christian memes about how ridiculous Christians are and Christian faith is, and making fun of us. And I'm just like looking at these things. I'm like, this is not at all what Christianity is. This is not what I believe. Like, where is this even coming from? And I tried to ask her a few questions about it, and she just got super offended and defensive. And so it was in that moment that God just lit a fire under my butt of me recognizing, okay, like I need to know what I believe in a way that I can articulate it to people that don't believe what I believe and make it make sense. I feel like there can be like the super high scholarly types that just have the jargon that doesn't make sense to any of us.
The theology.
But they're super smart, and you're like, okay, well, I'll never be able to understand what's coming out of their face. And then you have like the everyday people that maybe you have like some super solid Christians, but you'll never really know because they're just kind of there. Yeah. And then you'll have people that have a very weird theology and understanding of scripture, and they're just out there like spraying it to the world. And I'm like, okay, what is going on? So I don't know. God just used it to light a fire under my butt and recognize that I need to be able to articulate what I believe and why I believe it, which is how I discovered apologetics, which is giving a defense or a reason for the hope that you have within you. And so I started the process of looking into apologetics and how to defend the faith in a way that's not going to cause other people to feel sad about their own lives. In a way, and I like it. I like the idea of being able to talk with people and have conversations when we don't believe the same things, but we can have those conversations and like, okay, you believe this, I believe this. Like, what's the difference? Or you think that about Christian faith, but this is actually what it is. Like, I don't know where you learned that, but let me correct you. No, in a nice way. But yeah, so I got connected with Apologetics Canada. I just like reached out to the president, Andi Steiger, and asked, like, actually went up to him after a speaking engagement, was like, I want to do what you do. And so we got connected that way. And so for the last few years, I've been an adjunct speaker with them and a volunteer. So I go to a lot of their different ministry events and things like that. But yeah, I started Rekindled Faith Ministries. It actually started as a book idea. So if anyone wants to help me write a book, let me know. But it started as a book idea of just rekindling the faith, of helping those that have struggled, like how I struggled, those who have walked away from faith and been wandering through the wilderness, you know, the wild walkers, the ones that like the idea of having a relationship with God, but don't fully understand how to have a relationship with God and have been so burned by the sins of other people within the church or even outside the church that they're just at a distance from God. So I know I've had the opportunity to connect with a lot of people that are like active Christians, but feel like they don't have a place at church. And I've had an opportunity to connect with the people outside of the church that are scared to go in the church for the same reasons that I was scared to go in the church, because you think that you're just going to be judged and condemned and treated poorly. And sometimes you are, because inside the church, there are humans, and humans are sometimes a problem. So yeah, so I just started from that. And then my goal was to be able to create a ministry where I could have conferences and lead workshops and things. And that dream is not dead, but kind of closed for right now. So I turned it into a podcast. I was like listening to some other young podcasters and connected with a couple people, and they're like, anybody can podcast. You can podcast. So I started the podcast in my closet, because apparently having all of your clothes break the sounds, it's good. No longer in the closet, as you can tell. And awesome. Yeah, it's totally grown. And, you know, I don't like the idea of like being an influencer online. Like that just is icky to me. So and I know I've got Troy Lydiot from Apologetics Canada. He's like, you influence people in life. Like you are an influencer. And I'm like, okay, Troy. But yeah, like I'm not here to gain the likes and the follows and the things. Like I'd be perfectly okay just making a podcast and just having it out in the air for like one random person that finds it. If God wants to blow it up, cool. But also I'm okay if we just stay small. Sorry, Andi. I'm like, that's all right. I'm all right with that. But it's just like, it's honestly just a faithful thing of like opening up my hands and like, this is what I can give you, God. If you want to use it for something, then go for it. Yeah. My heart is just to bring those that are lost and wandering back home to the foot of the cross and the heart of Christ and his love for them, because it has completely transformed every part of my life. And like, I'm married with kids now, and I bake sourdough bread. Not that anybody else has to, but there's just a lot of, and cookies. I gave Andi cookies today. But there's just a lot of gratitude. And where I used to take a lot of things for granted, and I used to live, remember that mirage of like, if only it's over there. But no, it's right here. It's in the day-to-day life with the real people that I get to encounter. I open up my home and have people come over for dinner, and we have wonderful food and conversations. And that's what it's all about. And so my ministry first is to my family and my hometown, my communities. And then if people get benefit from these conversations, and I'd like to do workshops and stuff too, then that's great. Oh, and I'm writing a book. But again, if anyone wants to help me, that's legit, not just some weirdo.
Awesome. Okay, let me make sure I got all the questions I had for you, all the burning questions. I guess you kind of did this, but what do you see, like, where do you see things going, or how would you like things to go with the podcast? Or I guess you kind of answered that, didn't you?
I'd like to see, like, I honestly would like to see the podcast just impact people that need it. Like the online world is so messy, it seems sometimes. I just want people to know that, you know, God is for us, but God also asks us to die to ourselves. And I had to die to myself like many times. I still do. It's a whole process of refining fire. And so with this podcast, with the opportunity to interview different people from all walks of life about their story of of finding hope and faith in Jesus Christ, that's great. For people that have been more on the academic side of sharing specific issues, specific topics that they've seen that have been issues within the church or outside the church, that's great. If people can learn and grow in their faith through this podcast, through this ministry, then that's my biggest hope, that they will be drawn closer and deeper into the wholehearted love of Christ.
Oh, so beautiful. And where can people find you besides the Rekindled? You have a website. I know
I do have a website. Yeah.
I've looked at your website.
Ooh, thanks. Yeah. So I have a website, melaniebeerda.ca. And then I've got Instagram, melanie.beerda, and also Facebook.
Beerda is Beerda.
Yeah. Like beer.
Not Beerda.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your story today. Is there any final words that you want to express?
Yeah, I would just say thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And huge shout out to those of you that had started in season 1, because if you go back to those first episodes in my closet, there's definitely, like, I've become more confident and more interested and willing to talk about things and like dive into things. And honestly, if you could leave a rating or a review, that would be great. Preferably nice ones. But if you've got criticism, I'm okay with that.
Don't leave it.
Don't leave it.
Send it in
an email.
Written letter. And also subscribe. Because you're going to be on YouTube.
Yeah. And Andi is my new co-host. So stay tuned for next week's episode, because we're going to dive right into her testimony as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Mel.
Thanks, Andi.
Okay.